Um, Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing good. Now, we have already started our discussion with chapter 2, and I have explained the features of state, the definition and features of state, and the differences between state and government and state and other associations. Now, in this video, I'm going to take up the theories discussing the origin of the state. Now, there are several theories which discusses the origin of the state. That means, how did the state come into existence? We have learned about the state as an institution. We have learned about its features. But as an institution, how did it come into existence? How did it originate? So there are several theories which talks about the origin of the state. Though there is not much of unanimity between the scholars on this. However, we need to discuss the theories. Now, there are several theories like the divine origin theory, the force theory, the social contract theory, the evolutionary theory. So, let us take up these theories one by one. So, the first theory that I am going to take up is the divine origin theory. Now, if you go by the name of the theory, the divine origin theory. Now, the word divine, that means it is associated with God. So, in very simple language, the divine origin theory claims or claimed that the state was made by God. The state is the creation of the Almighty. The state is created by God. And the king was the representative of God on earth. Please remember these 2 points, that the state was created by God and the king is the representative of God on earth. So, as the king is the representative of God on earth, that means he was unquestionable. That means it was obligatory to be obedient to the king. It was obligatory for everyone to be obedient to the king. The king could not be questioned. Okay, so there were no rights of the individuals to ask any questions. So whatever the king said was right, and if you disobeyed the king, that means you are disobeying God, because he was the representative of God on earth. So if you are disobeying the king, that means you are disobeying God. That means you are committing a sin. So this was the basic concept of the divine origin theory. Now, the king would express the will of the god. So, in other words, the will of the god was expressed to the kings, and there was no rights which could be exercised by the common people. And this theory was very popular, remained very popular through the ancient times and even through the Middle Ages. However, towards the end of the Middle Ages, when there was a conflict between the state and the Pope, that means the head of the state was the king and the head of the church was the Pope, when they started having a conflict, this theory suffered a blow. Now, there were several supporters of this theory, like St. Augustine, St. Paul, St. Thomas Aquinas, Stuart, kings of England. You will get these names in your book. I would like to read out a comment by Dr. Figs. He said that under any circumstances, resistance to a king is a sin. So, from this quotation, the main concept of this theory gets reflected. However, this theory, the divine origin theory, has been discarded. There have been several criticisms which are leveled against this particular theory. The first of all, this is an unhistorical theory. That means, if we refer to history, we do not see that the state was created by God. Though, in mythology, even if we take the example of Indian mythology, like Ram, he was considered to be Ram of Ayodhya, was considered to be an incarnation of Lord Vishnu. But that's mythology, and there is enough debate on the fact that whether the mythological characters, they were real, those things actually took place, or they were just mythological characters and it was a creation of the then poets. Anyway, so unhistorical, getting back to the criticisms of
the divine origin theory, it is unhistorical. In history, we do not see a reference of an entity called God coming and creating the state. State is an evolutionary concept. It has evolved through time. It was not made by God at any point of time. Secondly, undemocratic. This theory, the divine origin theory, is undemocratic. Why so? Because democracy, as a form of government, democracy gives rights to the people. It talks about rights, giving rights, equal rights to the people, where people can express themselves. But this particular theory, the divine origin theory, spoke about giving all the rights or surrendering all the rights to the king, to the monarch, who was the representative of God on earth. So the theory was undemocratic and cannot remain popular in today's time when democracy is supposed to be one of the most prominent forms of government. Now, it denies, third criticism, it denies any rights to the people. The people had no right to question the king. Whatever he did was considered to be the best. And even if anybody attempted to question the king, that was considered to be sin. So there were no rights which were given to the common people. Then a very important criticism of this theory is that it clouded state, which is actually a political organization or association, with a religious smoke. I repeat, the political institution called state was clouded with religious smoke. It is very essential to divide between politics and religion. They should not be clubbed together, but in this theory they were clubbed together. Politics and religion was not separated from each other. However, finally, by the end of the 18th century, the theory started becoming extremely unpopular, mostly because the social contract theory, which was another theory which explains the origin of the state, became very popular, and church and state, they were divided. So that means, the concept of politics and religion got separated from each other. So in that way, this theory suffered a severe blow. However, one important thing that needs to be remembered, that why are we still studying this theory? If it is discarded, if it's unhistorical, it's illogical, then why are we still studying this theory? Because this theory evolved or developed at a time when people did not have the habit of obeying. So this theory in a way taught people how to obey the sovereign, how to obey the king, or how to obey the laws. So this notion of obedience or the notion of obligation was inculcated in the people. So that is in a way a summary of the divine origin theory. The next theory that I am going to take up is the force theory. The force theory is another theory which discusses the origin of the state. Now, before I start the force theory, one particular thing that has to be remembered, and that is not only in the case of these theories discussing the origin of the state, but in general, whenever you read a theory, try to understand it in a context. That means, when did the theory develop? Say, for example, if today I try to develop a particular theory, it can be a political theory, it can be an economic theory, I have to take into consideration COVID. I have to take into consideration the emergency that we are living in. So that means, my theory will definitely not be feasible. I cannot develop a theory without considering the situation that I am into. So these theories, getting back to my discussion, these theories, whatever theories we study in social sciences, were the reflection or had reflections of those times, of those situations when the theories developed. Getting back to the force theory. Okay, here also if we try to understand or go by the word force, that means this theory says, or this theory believed that state was the result of the use of coercion or force and conquest. So these two words play a very important role in this theory. Two words, coercion, that is force, and conquest. If we refer to history, if we refer to the primitive times, we know that it was very natural for human beings. It was a natural instinct Why only to refer to primitive times? Even today, power is such an important concept of politics or of international relations. Anyway, this particular theory considered taking help of the primitive society while explaining the primitive society, saw that mostly the powerful men would exercise their strength on the weaker men. The people with more physical strength, the clans which had people with more physical strength, could exercise their power on the less able or the less people who had less physical strength. And in that way, the clans, they developed into tribes, and people or the leaders of those tribes who had powerful leaders, they could sustain themselves. Okay, so this theory believed in this concept that state emerged as an exercise of power, right? Now, McIver, who was an esteemed writer, in his book Modern State, pointed out that force not only played an important role in the emergence of state, but also in the annexation and expansion of it. So, when we refer to history, we see that kings would go on expanding their territories through conquests. So that is also a part of this theory. In a way, we can interpret those annexation policies in terms of this theory. This theory is also based on a fundamental principle, that is, might is right. I repeat myself, this theory, the force theory, believed in the concept of might is right. And even scholars like Thomas Hobbes, about whom we will learn in detail later while we discuss the social contract theory. Hobbes, while depicting the state of nature, that means the condition of the society before the emergence of state, believed or observed that men were very selfish. And they were very selfish. There were no laws. There was no concept of obedience. So a powerful king was necessary to control them, to make them obedient. Otherwise, there was a lot of chaos and anarchy which prevailed. There were some other supporters of this theory, like Treitschke, Bernhardi. They also supported this theory. However, this theory, the force theory, has also earned itself enough criticisms. To begin with, we have to mention about T.H. Green, who was an English philosopher. He mentioned, I quote him, "Will, not force, is the basis of the state." A very, very important quotation, and it often comes as a question. The quotation is given and it's asked that, whose quotation is this? So I repeat, T.H. Green, he said that will, not force, is the basis of the state. So will means what the people want, what the people desire. Okay, so he emphasized on people's will, people's desire to form a state. He discarded the concept of power or force. He did not believe that state was a result of the exercise of power, but he believed that state was a result of the people's desire to come together to form a human association like state. Even if we refer to history, yes, primitive times, the times when the tribes and the clans prevailed, ancient times, we definitely get enough examples. Or even if we refer to the monarchs, the great kings that we read about in history, yes, they did exercise power. But as we move from the medieval times to the modern times, we see that power was overthrown. If we take the example of the October Revolution, the French Revolution, even if we come to India's freedom movement, these were all movement against the use of unnecessary force. Nazism, fascism, they also could not sustain themselves for a very long time. The Nazis and the fascists, they believed in the use of force. But they could not sustain themselves for a very long time. So historical references also prove that the force theory cannot really be the only explanation to the origin and the expansion of state. And popular will, what about the popular will? In today, these times are the times of democracy, where people's desire, people's will is very, very important. And this theory completely, the theory of force, completely discards people's will or people's desire. So this theory cannot be accepted because it's incompatible with democracy. And this theory also fails to explain the concept of political obligation. Please try to understand this. This theory, the theory of force, fails to explain the concept of political obligation. What do we mean by political obligation? That means, we will oblige to the state. Today, we oblige to the state. We say the state is sovereign. We oblige to the state. And that is by choice. That is not by force, right? If we break the laws, then maybe the state can use force. Otherwise, the state cannot use force anywhere or anytime on us. Okay, so because we oblige to follow the state, because the state will protect us, it will look into our lives, it will look into our overall development. That is the reason why we oblige to the state. Yes, there are several theories and debates and discussions on this, that whether the state should be given this right, whether the state should be a minimal state, or whether the state should be given more rights. Yes, these are topics, or these are debates that are going to come up, or we will have discussions on these later. But going by the theory of force, this theory completely failed to acknowledge the notion of political obligation. They believe, this theory particularly believed, that it was completely the use of might which was the factor contributing to the origin of the state. So here I end my video. So we have discussed two theories in this particular video discussing the origin of the state. There are a few other theories which will be taken up later. Thank you.